It's another Monday. Life is happening. I was like, this is a funny thing I want to read to you. So there's wisdom everywhere, right? And so I was thinking, I watched part of the 2021 version of the movie Dune. Anyone read those books? I've read all those books too, right? They're amazing sci-fi.
He's read all the books of Dune.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, I want to go, Michael. I love them. There's so many right thoughts about human nature built into those, especially the first 5 of them. But so in this movie, some screenwriter wrote this. The mystery of life isn't a problem to solve, but a reality to experience. A process that cannot be understood by stopping it. We must move with the flow of the process. We must join it. We must flow with it, right? So the mystery of life isn't a problem to solve, but a reality to experience. Like, and I get not accused, but sometimes I get accused of or labeled, and it's probably true. Of my teaching kind of I have a little bit of mystic edge in how I teach, right? And it's funny who calls what from where, right? Because what if in fact I would like fire back about that? No, actually I'm the empiricist, right? That if you actually take experience as it actually happens, it defies explanation. It defies reduction. So it's funny who gets called a mystic and who doesn't. Now, I would say that a mystic that tries to take the mystery of what's happening and tries to turn it into power or control, right? Or turn like an alchemist, turning stuff into gold. Right now, that would be, what's funny about that is that's the mind trying to make something of the mystery, right? Turning mystery into a causal phenomena, or turning the inside of your yoga practice or my yoga practice in the ability to flex a muscle, right? Is thought to be mystical, except what if what's actually happening here? So what this line that brings me to what I want to talk about before we start practicing and hopefully get yet another lens on practice, on the things I've been saying for a while, right? For a long time. This is how I practice. The mystery of life. How about the mystery of a yoga pose isn't a problem to be solved? And what's interesting, if you don't know, I'm an Iyengar yoga teacher, which means I'm trained a lot in precision, right? So, and I don't teach that way as much with an adaptive yoga class because not everyone has the same access to muscular action in a precise way, right? And a lot of you are, you do have to be precise. But yet it's also how I practice, because I don't, precise physical instructions don't really help me feel yoga through my paralyzed body. Right. So, so it's always been interesting that I'm an Iyengar yoga teacher, right? Because I actually learn from the precision and the refinement. So if you go from the assumption that something that's happening here is got more to it and defies our mind's ability to conceptualize it, which is all the mystery of life isn't a problem to be solved, right? Like there's more to it. I want to try to put into relief what B.K. Iyengar tried to do, right? He tried to, this is one of a zillion lenses, but is that he tried to take the mystery of what's actually happening or what's underneath and conjoin it, if you know anything about Iyengar yoga, and conjoin it or map it onto the most comprehensive precision in physical action as you can imagine. So he took this mystery and tried to land it fully through the physical body. And by learning the precision, part of the method is that the precision eventually reveals the mystery. right? But what happens to a lot of Iyengar yoga teachers is they get, and a lot of yoga students and a lot of type A people, not just in yoga, right? Is they get caught on the precision part, right? They don't realize that it was always meaning to open a door to something else. So in the yogic background, that might be, whatever this energy here that's divine, or whatever, however you want to like put words to the other part of what's here that kind of defines our mind, right? Our mind's ability to conceptualize. So I want to tie this into a couple. So what do I mean by precision? A ton of stuff, but like put your hand down on something flat, whether it's on your leg or not, right? There's all of these things that I could tell you about how to get the energy to flow through your arm better, right? So one of the really more physical instructions, and if you can't put your hand down flat, you can still do what I'm talking about. It's a little bit harder, but like, for example, one of the more physical instructions is press down through the mound of your index finger, right? And then do what's kind of a contradiction for your mind. Once you like bring energy across, so look, I've already changed my words, right? Bring energy across, or awareness across, from the outer elbow to the index finger mound, right? So there's a crossing of the midline, right? That then once you have that, if you just do that, you're out of balance, right? You'd want to rotate the inner upper arm out while simultaneously pressing down to the index finger. Now, there's going to be a whole bunch of ways that I'm going to say that without it being muscular. I'm going to tell you to like press down through the index mound and then lengthen your inner upper arm, roll the shoulder down into the socket. All of this is so the energy goes through the elbow joint better. And then I could tell you to broaden your palms. And once you broaden your palms, you don't press down to the index finger as much. Well, the index finger was only the first door, right? That was only the first door, right? The anchoring at the side armpit and down below into the chest, that was another door. The lengthening up here was another door. For what end is this precision? To experience a more directed flow of energy through your arm, right? And then release. If you only did it on one arm, not do it with the other. So I just want to give you, like, you won't believe, it literally can get so complicated in an Iyengar yoga pose. If you ever come across a senior Iyengar teacher, the level of precision and refinement, it literally puts me to sleep. It overwhelms my mind. What somebody has done studying the precision part of opening the mystery, right? And it can land through the physical body. So press down through your index finger, roll the upper arm out, lengthen. So a lot of times I tell you to lengthen the skin on your arm, as opposed to give you precise instructions, because not everyone can press their hand down flat. I'm constantly giving instructions that are fundamentally ambiguous. And what's funny is that a lot of teachers I've trained will then go, oh, you mean get them to imagine or visualize? No, I absolutely don't mean that. That disempowers the student. It is not about your mind. That would be your mind trying to take control of stuff again, right? So you do both. And then if you do want to do both at the same time, do both at the same time. So we're moving towards dog pose. And again, I could sit here and impress you with all the different ways that I could give you instructions in this pose of learning how to move awareness more directly through the arms. And what's amazing, now here's where the mystery part comes to me, and why I can see why Iyengar yoga does the method it does, right? Is because when I do this well, I start to feel my legs. If I can start to receive what's happening because of the precision, the awareness of my whole body starts to deepen. But not the kind of awareness where my mind can go, oh, that's my third left toe. It's not that kind of awareness. It's something else. It's what's going underneath. So so keep in mind, like, that's what I mean by precision. So you go back to the line, right? from Dune, right? Which is the mystery of life isn't a problem to solve, but a reality to experience. So there's a line I've said a couple times that I often, so you're getting a lot of like things I teach yoga teachers that come to train how to teach you, right? Which I say things like, there's a great line from Prashana Iyengar that says, I can't teach you what you don't know. Meaning there's experiences possible. This would be mystical, right? By its formation. I can't teach you what you don't know, because if like, and the idea is that there's more happening than your conceptual framework can actually receive. Your mind is a problem. This is going to be a theme in the realization of asana, right? I can't teach you what you don't know, but what you don't know could be happening. Meaning, guess what? No one would deny that there might be more happening than our senses can actually perceive. There might be more happening in the yoga pose than your mind actually is aware of. I don't think anyone's got a problem with that thought, right? Except that would be right into the mysticism we're talking about. But what if that's the reality of experience? That's the reality. The mind tries to narrow everything down, and it needs to. So I can't teach you what you don't know, but what you don't know could be happening. What's happening beyond what your mind can perceive and conceptualize might be more profound than you could even know. Meaning that some of the profundity of experience will be beyond the reach of the mind. Right? So I can't teach you what you don't know. What you don't know could be happening. What's happening could be more profound than what you know. And then the home run line, cultivate the happening. In other words, keep doing it. It will reveal, right? The mystery of life isn't a problem to be solved, but a reality to experience. This is why you practice yoga, and why you should never really get bored with doing something over and over again. The mind's gonna want the mind in repetition gets bored, because in order to stay awake, it needs newness, right? So hit pause, we're hitting pause on the tape recorder. And then we're going to another series of lines you've heard before, right? Now, you might not have heard this, but in general, yogic realization is typically passed down philosophically with a line that I've been doing this for 31 years, 32 years, and I'm having a new level for the last couple of years of understanding what might have been meant, or the potential in what was uttered, right? So I don't know what the authors of this line meant, but there was potential in the utterance for realization. And that's up to me as a student, right? That there over and over, you'll hear in yogic philosophy, you'll hear, you have to get past the subject object distinction. The duality between subject and object is actually illusory, right? So the fact that, and it's hard to unpack this in any meaningful way, right? But there's the cup, there's me. The mind, in order to realize itself in relationship to the unity that's here, or the yogis would say the unity that's actually more real, in order for my mind to not get lost in the loss of boundary of absolute unity, my mind has to turn my experience into an object, right? A separation, which is actually kind of makes sense. I'm pretty sure I'm not this coffee cup, except am I actually the center? Am I connected to the center empty space in the inside of a tree? Is there really a distinction, right, between me and the things around me? The yogis are going to say no. That's imposed by the mind, right? So it's like that idea, I've never gotten a lot out of that utterance, because it seems too inorganic and too about the mind. How does that translate to experience, right? So then there's a whole bunch of other lines you've heard that I pass on from B.S. Iyengar because they resonate with me. When effortful effort becomes effortless, you've encountered the fourth method of pranayama. What? Right? But by the way, he doesn't, and this is a translation, a controversial translation from a line in the Yoga Sutras. And remember, because Iyengar is always thinking about asana. So, or fundamentally thinks about asana and pranayama. So he's going to want to reveal how the body actually breathes, not just your lungs, right? What? Again, what if there's more happening than you know? This isn't mystical, this is real. How do you live within a world in which the subject-object distinction in some ways is not real? It's illusory. So what's being passed on here with all these contradictory words? Experience. Something to figure out in experience. So put your arms back down on the table, right? Is there something underlying the precision of figuring out how to work my arms in a pose that reveals more connection rather than less? And the answer is, when you put your hands down and start listening to the gosh darn instructions from yogis past, you will start to realize that they're trying to name ways to open doors to help you feel something underneath what's happening. Now, what I really I resent almost, but I really am frustrated with calling this mindfulness, right? Mind's exactly the problem here, because it makes everything into an object, right? There's an underlying level of experience. The underneath part of the iceberg isn't just the unconscious. It's the actual experience that the mind has to torture into something simpler, right? And so there's another level here. It's not just what your mind's unconscious of, is that your mind's a problem at all. And then release. So what would a line be like? Oh, every cell of your body breathes. What the hell does that even mean? My lungs are here and they're objects, and no, all right. But what could be trying to be conveyed? So sit up straight and tall. And why would B.K. Iyengar say, let every cell have an eye, but let it have two eyes? Eyes, right? Not eyes, not, right? Let there be an outward facing eyeball and an inward facing eyeball, but do it in the body. Don't do it from your mind. What the hell does that even mean? Except wait, when I center and I start to try to feel the lightness and the space in my body, not just what I can control with muscular action, when I start to allow, when I kind of light up, not with energy, but with awareness of space or something, which often is called ether, because they're just trying to label stuff, right? I actually can go, wait, I guess I kind of can look inward, but how I feel inward or look inward doesn't come from here. It comes from dropping into my experience. And when that happens, my awareness can travel in both directions. So as you put your arms down by your sides, make sure that you're not gripping your organs of perception. Remember, I say things like prana rewards structure. I say all these weird things. They're not weird at all. They're an attempt to help you experience something. This isn't a problem to be solved. It's a reality to be experienced. And what our minds experience is not exhaustive of what reality is. There's more going on here. And my mind may only be able to travel on the tip of the iceberg. There's more here. Above the water, I have more control. Below the water, I only get to receive. Do you have the faith that there's more here? And a space in the experiential way. I mean, a lot of people have faith that there's more here by having faith in God, which is a great way to do it, right? But there's also an experiential component that we're plugging into something. in asana. And when effortful effort becomes effortless, is one of the doorways that asana is trying to open into another level of experience. What happens when you clench your jaw? Over open your eyes. What happens when you try too hard? Over straighten your arms. Shoot your elbow forward, your elbow pit forward, right? Like you're going to lock your arms into place. Well, that doesn't, you could lock your arms and still receive. It's going to be harder. What would he mean by effortless effort becoming effortless? He doesn't say effortless effort doesn't exist. He says when it becomes effortless, he doesn't take the effort out of the asana. He says when it becomes effortless. So effort can also be effortless. What the hell does that even mean? But what if it's integral to the mystery of a yoga pose, to the mystery of our place in relationship to the world, in relationship to what's happening on the inside of a tree? What if it's not perceivable as an object, but experienceable as a reality? Good, and then release. What I know a lot of people wish it meant is that we shouldn't, like, for example, that because I'm connected to the tree, it should dictate that I should never chop down the tree, right? It doesn't tell you what to do. Bring your hands in it. That's the problem here. That's why bad players are bad players. They take this energy and they move it to what they want, right? The kind of control they want. Someone wants power around us and is trying to get us through fear to access the unknowable and then direct it for their benefit, right? So as I connect the heel of my hands, as I add some of the precision, and even if you're like this, add precision, find the empty space between the palms, hit down through your sitting bones, lift up through the collarbones. This is your space. It's nobody else's, except you share it with the universe. Fundamentally, you share this with the universe. It is nobody else's. It's yours in the universe. Good, and then release. Right? So all these lines, I'm going to keep trying to tell you what's the place. So the problem with precision in instruction is and asana itself gives the things, physical things for the mind to turn into objects, to engage the will, right? And so when you press down through the index muscle, it seems like a tangible physical action, right? And it is, because the mind does need to be satiated in order for it to let go, right? For it to receive what's underneath. So the precision has a function, right? But attachment to the precision will collapse your yoga poses. All right, so again, sit up straight and tall. Now this idea of learning how to lift your chest, there's so many places you're not lifting. I'm sure, well, maybe you do it wonderfully, right? But I'm telling you, there's more. Put your thumb or put your hand right underneath, like you have suspenders right here, right? And try to support the lift in your chest. And just feel what that feels like. And then let it drop. So the questions that get my mystical stuff going are real practical. Why would a lifted chest be in every pose? I'm gonna do it again. What's the experience? So now I'm not just pushing up and underneath here and rolling my shoulders back, which I need to do in general. My shoulders roll forward too much and I collapse the center of my consciousness, right? So do you. And then the damn people call it bad posture. No, it's really energetically inefficient. You're less in connection with the universe when your chest is dropped, in the universe that you can experience. So now as I'm pressing here and lifting up, instead of just lifting up, now I'm broadening the skin across the front of my chest. Now I'm trying to drop my shoulder blades and move the space between my shoulder blades to widen it because I want the skin on my back body to join the pose, right? I just don't want it to be what I'm feeling here. And I want to make a connection inward from the back of my eyes. Oh, I lost my glasses. From the back of my eyes down to my sitting bones. And now I want to connect that to my inner heels. And in this fullness, that my mind is the last of the party to, I breathe. Good, and then release. Remember, the mind, like I said, I keep saying stuff like this. The mind is the last to the party, right? Because the mind is always going to make an object of the experience that actually has more dimension than that, right? And that's the limitation of the mind. That's why in yoga philosophy, you're hearing things like the mind needs to become the pure observer, right? So lift up. So until I let gravity show me that there's lightness in my spine, and especially in my base of my spine, for those of us that sit a lot, I'm just gonna bounce a little bit because I want that to be playful in there, and then back down. And I didn't know it, but I usually let that compress more than it needs to. My mom, 87, has a compression fracture, so I'm trying to help her find space in her low back, right? It's part of why I've been, because that'll help her be in her legs. So I'm setting myself down again, keeping my chest lifted, but trying not to just like a sack of potatoes, right? So I'm trying to keep that lit. And now I'm going to take my hands on the front of my knees, press back on my knees, not trying to overarch my chest, but try to keep that spaciousness in my low back. As soon as I let go of some of the physical stuff, it has to collapse. So my memory has to be part of the pose. The memory of sensation. It's not imagination, that's memory of sensation, right? Is part of your pose. And then release. So I'm going to tell you the space that gets lengthened and created when you lift up is similar in texture to letting your elbow pit open like a blinking eye, right? So remember, our words fail here. Lift up, find that space, set yourself down lightly, put your hands on your lap, straighten your arms. From the lightness in your low back, practice opening the elbow pit like a blinking eyeball, soft. So when you tried to open this, if you tried to jam your elbow forward, it would not be soft. But if you try to move from over here and from here, you're going to be able to open this with more subtlety. The skin is going to remain awake instead of getting covered up by physical action invoked by your will. So then release. So when I just open my elbow by jamming my elbow, everyone can do that, do it. Jam your elbow forward, right? What that does is my mind's control covers up the sensation of skin on my elbow pit. When that happens, I lose connection to my body. I succeed, my mind thinks it succeeds. But remember, there's more happening than what your mind can know, right? So all this precision is not its own end. The precision is to reveal, right? So put your arms down by your sides. And I'm trying to tell you that that blinking elbow pit, where your sitting bones are and where your heels are one and the same. That's also part of the reality. My mind doesn't think it is. So I need to practice. Good, and then release, lift up. Set yourself down lightly. Take your arms out in front of you, wrists on your knees or hands on your knees. Keep the sensation and the memory of the sensation of space in your low back. And try to have it open your elbow pit like a blinking eye. In order to do that, you're going to have to anchor here and spread your palms. So the subtlety at the elbow pit remains light the way the memory of sensation is in your low back. Now soften your jaw, the inside of your mouth. Make it all the same. You don't have to make it, it already is the same. It was your mind that turned it into objects. Allow the mystery. Breathe. Remember, I tell you, we get our mind limits in order to create your personality, your sense, your self-knowledge, right? Good. One of the insights that, there's in yoga, you hear in yoga philosophy, you hear about the big S and the little s. Here, the little s, there's a big S, right? What a wild thing that the yogis are saying is that true self-realization means that you were already the ocean, right? And your relationship, the little s to the ocean, is what the mind struggles with. Take your legs wide. The thing about what asana does is it makes experience look like a problem to be solved, because that helps the mind. Remember, so asana is only one of the limbs. So I'm just taking my legs wide and trying to feel like, hey, that's space I missed. I'm going to pick up one knee and then the other because I want some movement here. I don't want it to stay static. Remember, what's the line in the thing? You don't get to stop the experience in order to study it. You're supposed to learn in movement. All this in the damn movie of Dune, right? And so I'm sitting here and I'm trying to feel lighter in my whole body. And I've already told you that the potential for the realization of empty space is deeper in your joints than it is in your control, right? So I'm trying to feel where my joints are. Good, and then bring your legs back together. So if you don't know, I think there's a lot of important stuff happening in joints. A lot of so what do I mean? Again, I'm going to grab my own wrist, and my wrist it's really being sore, right? So I'm going to give it not just love, I'm going to give it boundary. And I'm going to let the quieting that and if someone were to do this to you, it would feel better. If there was an object coming from outside, as long as you trusted who was grabbing your wrist, right? But you're trying to take that calming support and breathing into it and letting it be about your whole body. So now I watch some of my more disabled students with CP. When they get one joint calmed, their whole body releases. I've seen it with my eyes. How is that true with me? I have a lot of tendonitis in my elbow, right? So I'm going to squeeze that muscle that's working too hard. So bring the muscle towards the bone, right? A lot of us carry a lot of tension in the forearm. I just carry more, right? So I'm going to bring the muscle to the bone and I'm going to let it be soothing. I'm not going to go, wait, is that fixing this? Is that fixing that? That'd be your mind again. I'm looking for what soothes in my experience, right? If I grip my arm too hard, or if you were to come and grab my forearm and grab it too hard, I'd be scared. My mind would jump into alertness. But I'm trying to get my mind to receive. So now I'm going to do it and try to feel a sense of lightness from bringing the muscle to the bone, and do it with the other arm. This arm isn't as sore. So I have to look for the relief more. Oh, there it is. So this relief, I've tried to tell you, is kind of how Shavasana is in every pose. Right? I can see people are having a hard time with how much I'm talking. Right? You're getting a little overwhelmed. You were a while ago. I get that. So what if that relief that I'm trying to create is the same energy that's in my low back. It's the same energy that allows for my elbow pit to open. So I'm gonna lift up. I'm gonna set down. I'm gonna straighten my arms into dog pose. And I'm gonna try to lose nothing. Right? Now I'm gonna try to focus on pressing down to the index mound. Moving around the elbow pit, above it, anchoring it, so one joint doesn't have to overwork. So the elbow pit gets to receive. And then I'm going to add subtlety by trying to feel the skin of my elbow pit. And open that up and let the opening eyeball of my elbow pit be a reflection of the center of my chest. Remember, the mystery is to be experienced. You don't get to stop and create it. It was already here. That's what the yogis are trying to pass down. But the mind gets cranky and feels itches on the face. Wants to move around. Has a hard time staying still. Good, and then release. Sit up straight and tall for a second. Breathe. Feel the inner circumference of your rib cage. From the inner circumference of your rib cage, press down to your inner heels. The introduction of breath, or the realization of the continuousness of breath, means that you can never stop it unless you die. Then the movement maybe ceases, at least here. Good, and then release. So I had part of my yogic awareness burst wide open. And when that happens, when it bursts wide open, it's typically not a new thing that bursts it open, but an old thing that suddenly sounds new to my mind, right? And it was when Richard Freeman said to me, he said, you know, they used to teach alignment by making monks stare at drawings of Hanuman in perfect alignment, right? That you can teach alignment by sitting in the presence of a very symmetrical drawing, a perfectly symmetrical drawing. And so I'm like, wait, you mean that's possible? Like how would you let something perfectly aligned enter into your body and create alignment? So what if I asked you to integrate with the space around you in the room? There's a place in the center of your chest that's actually perfectly centered with the entire room. If you think that realization, the only doorway to that realization is physical alignment, you will never find it. If you let the alignment that already exists be the leader of the yoga pose, you will combine asana with insight. So I'm trying to feel and make sure the center of my chest, but in order to actually find the center of my chest, I kind of need to know where my sitting bones are, where my heels are, and my head's on balance, and all these things start to talk to each other, right? And it's my mind that has to receive this without trying to take control of it. I'm going to want to soften my jaw on the inside of my mouth. I can tell I'm resisting the natural alignment that's already here. Mhm. And then he added another line that I wonder if he knows this short exchange we had while we were moving through his studio, and he was showing me a drawing that he was given to him of Hanuman in aligned pose. Then he said, and by the way, the natural consequence of alignment is compassion. He didn't pause with me with that. So if I'm integrated and aligned with the space around me, instead of fighting it, not just nonviolence has to start becoming more under my focus, but my love of other beings, of other life forms would all, and it's like, wait, he's saying that that's the natural consequence of aligning with the mystery of what my mind can't actually feel all the way. And the answer to that is yes. This is not a thought, it's an experience. So I'm stretching down through both arms. So did anyone read the newsletter? That peace train came out of our class together. What I wrote? Huh. What if this is where the peace train is? It's on the edge of darkness where my mind doesn't get to perceive. But my breath gets to touch. Good, and then release. So, again, put your hands on your. So I have to come forward on my sitting bones because I want to feel more grounded. And so I'm going to work my arms in a way that allows me to feel my feet and my legs, mindful that the center of the chest needs to be aligned and in balance with the whole room. I want my palms and my elbow pits to be an expression of that unity. When I stay with that aligned unity, effortful effort becomes effortless. It's not that I'm not trying to spread my fingers, it's that I'm doing it from a different place. I'm doing it from a mysterious place. Good, and then release. So the idea that you can be taught by stories and stuff has been one of my best teachers, right? So that's why I keep telling you things like alignment, about stories with Richard Freeman and stuff. So lift up again, right? And I've been telling you, if you sit a lot, that space in your low back is magical. Not because it fixes your anatomy, but because it's magical. The problem with living with disability and physical disability is it's hard to align your physical body with the underneath truth, right? So I have to uncoil. I've got scoliosis. So I'm gonna start moving back and forth for a second, so I can feel more equal between side to side. By introducing movement, my mind gets more input. When my mind gets more input, it has an easier time surrendering to the mystery. And then I'm coming back to alignment, figuring out how to work my arms, work my sitting bones, press down through my heels, lift my chest from the sensation of unity. A sensation that's an experience, not an idea. Do you have the patience to receive the possibilities that are here? It's hard. That's why the mind needs so much practice. It needs to shut down, get quieter, stop making objects. Except I am an object. My body is an object. So my mind can't leave that world. It just has to get quieter, dissolve into the experience. Breathe. Good, and then release. So I told you the story about Richard Freeman, about the drawing, but that story was, and again, I keep sharing my same stories because I never stop learning from them. Okay. I told you this story, I think most of you maybe heard it. I was able to hear Richard Freeman saying about alignment being taught by a drawing, right? Because I've been learning it through asana and physical action and Iyengar yoga, right? But then I remember a thing that I think set me up to hear what Richard was saying. So I was at an Iyengar convention in 2001. Gita Iyengar was there, his daughter, who's now deceased too, right? And she was standing with her hands on her hips. She was kind of a harsh woman, actually. And she's standing like this. And she just holds us. I think we're about to get yelled at, right? So we're just holding there in space. And I'm thinking, oh God, here it comes. Us damn Westerners are doing something wrong, right? And then what I take away from that experience, I don't think she yelled as much as I thought, right? But I know that now she was hovering in her joints. She was showing something. She was showing a lightness in her joints, because I had this really strong impression from a distance of seeing every one of her joints aligned and without effort standing there, right? That's part of what I know she intended or not, I think so, but I don't know. I know it's possible. So this idea of space in the low back, right, comes out of wanting to have my joints hover, right? My arms are stretching down. I'm trying to keep the sensation of space in my low back, the memory of it, the sensation. I'm trying to let it help me align my elbow pit in my palms. It's a reality to experience, not something you get to stop. Good, and then release. And what if that was in the center of every yoga pose? It's part of why I keep saying shavasana in every pose, right? Is because there is something of the ceasing that's part of the effortlessness. So my legs are going wide. And I'm going to, of course, because I want you to wake up a little bit, right? I want you to feel some stuff. So look at all the things that I'm doing. I'm pressing down here. I'm making grounding. I'm pressing down on my back leg. So this space lengthens, because I know this space energizes. So I'm going to just sit here and breathe, right? And then go off to the side. I have to let someone in. Someone's trying to come in. So come back to center and be in the center, and I'll move it around in a second. Oh, someone let him in. All right, so we're going to do it the other way. Okay? And remember, we're trying to create, right? So I'm going over. I'm changing my relationship to gravity. I'm changing the inputs from my brain to my mind. And I'm going to hit down, and I'm going to push down on my femur bone. So this launch. But as soon as I launch up, I have to hit my sitting bones down, right? Otherwise, I can't open the space behind my sternum. Not in the same way. So I'm breathing. Checking out to see if my head's aligned by surrendering to the drawing of alignment, the unity of sensation, and then back together. So one of the ways that I'm being in the center here, we're gonna go the first way again in a second. One of the ways that my mind can get to this door opening is to know that there's an unchanging part of my asana. But to get there, I need not to clench my jaw. I need to open, right? The unchanging part is an opening, not a clamping. The mind wants to clamp down to create something that's unchanging. You can't realize it by stopping it. You have to open. So I'm going to go over. I'm going to get this sensation. So I'm even grabbing stuff, man. I'm grabbing my foot pedal, I'm like hitting up. And now I'm going to go, okay, I want to stay faithful to that and make the physical action more complex. I want my rib cage and my sitting bones to lead the pose. I want my feet on the floor to ground the pose. I want to open to the mystery of it and then back. One of the things that yoga has taught me is to have the mystery in my body and not just in my head. It's part of what asanas has taught me, right? So I'm getting this space already because my mind wants to do more with this. It'll get tired of being enlightened in my joints, right? And so it's going to do more. But can I maintain it? Ooh, I'm falling already. I can feel it. So my muscles, because I'm falling, my muscles are having to work more. Damn it. And then come back. So I can tell you, I got more work to do on that side. So I'm going to be in the center again. Does anyone have a sense of what I mean by falling in a pose? Fatigue is a form of falling. It's not, you're not supposed to avoid the fatigue. Go over the first way. Right? But I was falling, and when I go the other way, I tend to fall back towards my back body. So the joints get heavy. Oh. How do I keep it all connected from grounding into lightness? How do I physically act and hover in my joints? I'm learning. I'm trying. I have to be patient. Good, and then release. There's more happening than I know. I need to cultivate the happening. Going the other way. I have to be allowing that my mind doesn't get things as fast as I would like. I have to allow that there have been others before me that know way more than I do. There are others right now that know this better than me. That's a relief. I'm glad I don't have to hold up the whole world. Good, and then release. Be comforted that people know more than you about yoga. It's not all up to you, thank God. Right? People have left breadcrumbs. Right? Inhale, take your arm up. Exhale, come over to the side. All right, so yeah, you could just crank this into a physical twist. How do I keep the mystery and let it come from my body to my mind, not just because I clamped down my mind to create a mystery? My mind has to receive poses, not just try to lead them. Lift down the collarbones, roll the shoulders back, hit down through your sitting bones, press down through your feet. Except my mind is given instructions and it gets to latch onto as objects. Good, and then come on back to center. My mind needs that. It needs to feel safe in its control, right? So there are all these physical instructions. Hit down through your sitting bones, press down through your inner heels. Let the center of the chest come up and let it float up. Before you start trying to twist, let there be hovering in your ankles, knees, and hips. And still effort, but stay open. Your mind doesn't have to close off all the edges. Inhale, lift up. Exhale, revolve, lift under the collarbones. Your mind's going to want to seal off the edges of the mystery. Good, and then come on back to center. Right? And so, because the mind does that, it loses the peace train. Right? Don't realize how peace could be a linchpin. Because the mind has to control the edges in order to feel safe. So obviously you figured this out. I'm doing this to make length in my low back again. Because I want it in Shavasana. I want my mind to remember. I'm going to hover around my joints suddenly in this position. My wrists, my elbows, my shoulders. My hips, my knees, my ankles. Then if I really want to mess myself up, I'll try to hover the joints in my fingers and in my toes, but that's probably gratuitous. It's probably not going to help me today. Except as soon as I say it, it kind of does. I'll never forget one time my yoga teacher said, stretch your fingernails, man. What? The hell do you stretch your fingernails? Do it. Stretch your fingernails right now. What? Huh. Thank God someone's been here before you. So grateful. Good, and then release. That someone's been here before you is part of the mystery. That they figured out how to talk to you with instructions about pure experience. It's part of the mystery. So practice some symmetry before you do Shavasana. Defaulting only to your breath is also a form of control. What if everything breathes? Everything exchanges. Not just the air in and the air out, but the way the empty space touches my skin, I absorb it. I let it out. Really? What if all that's true? Good, and then release. And then get more prepared for Shavasana. Don't ever try to use this quiet space as power over other people. The fingertips are touching because I want to be sensitive. I needed a little bit of grounding to let in the mystery. Lips together, teeth slightly apart. Center of your chest, balanced in the whole room. Surrender into connection. Allow the emptiness in your body to receive. Feel your breath. Don't change it. So this feeling of lightness in Shavasana, the integration of having surrendered the space around you. Maybe you can balance your head over your neck a little bit better. This is what and how yogis like stay up in headstand for 25 minutes. They learn how to incorporate Shavasana into a floating feeling, so their will does not have to act all the time. But they've trained their muscles to receive this other dimension. That's why asana exists. Start to bring yourself back. Slightly deep inhalation, slightly longer exhalation. When you're ready, open your eyes and let it all in. The fact that we typically have to close our eyes to feel is a powerful truth. We have to learn to feel with our eyes open. That takes practice. All right, everybody. So I hope you get that I think that I study asana as a way to understand and deepen my realization of yogic philosophy, not the other way around, right? It's all happening in the asana. And I studied in the asana because that guarantees it's already in the world, right? By studying all this realization in asana, the mind-body problem is actually solved. Remember, that's my starting point. I've been a philosopher thinking about the mind-body problem. All right, hands together. Or not. Namaste, spirit in me bows the spirit in you.